Përshëndetje shikues të Klan Kosovës. Zona B sonte është pa musafir në studio. Në fakt, ata nuk mungojnë, por janë disi më të veçantë nga tjerët që i shihni shpesh në emisionin tim apo të kolegëve të mi në Klan dhe televizione tjera. Mbi të gjitha, asu nuk do të jem ai që shtron pyetje njerëzve të cilët flasin në këtë edicion në zonën B. Sonde unë vetëm kam derin t'i paralajmëroj 2 intervista interesante të realizuara nga tjerët që punojnë në Klan Kosova. E para është me një general që flet për atë se si e pa Kosovën kur hyri këtu si pjesë e forcave të NATO-s në qershor të vitit 1999. Deri tash ju ka rënë të dëgjoni shpesh rrëfime ushtarakësh britanik, amerikan e gjerman për ardhjen triumfale të shtërimit Kosovës. Por vështirë se keni dëgjuar një holandes që tregon si e pa qytetin ku duhej të stacionohej, pra Rrëfimën 20 vjet më parë. Çfarë ndodhi me ruset që ishin në këtë qytet dhe sa afër ishte të niste një tjetër luftë e shqiptarëve me ushtarët e Kremlinit që të paftuar kishin zbarkuar në Kosovë dhe në Rrëfim me 1999. E dyta intervistë është për një qendër shumë të rëndësishme që po e ruan Evropën, Amerikën, BE-n dhe NATO nga Rusia. Në radhë të parë, jo që po e ruan në aspektin e ndërhyrjes ushtarake, por në atë kërcënimeve hibride që mund të jetë një përzierje e lajmeve të rreme, sulmeve kibernetike dhe formave tjera jo konvencionale. Po i kthemi edhe njëherë intervistës e parë. Generali Ton Van Loon dhe ushtarët e tij kishin një detyrë të rëndë kur hynë në Kosovë bashkë me trupat gjermane, 3 ditë pas kapitulimit të Serbisë. Ai fillimisht tunalin në Prizren për të vazhduar drejt Rrëfimit. Ajo që pa këtu e tmerroi. Asnjëherë nuk kishte menduar se dikush mund të ekzekutojë me qindra veta dhe përmbi trupat e viktimave të hedh derra të ngodhur për të shndëruar edhe më të vrarët. Po ashtu, në këtë intervistë, Van Loon tregon për dallimin e madh ndërmjet Kosovës dhe Afganistanit në mikpritje dhe siguri për ushtarët e tij. Ai pas tjera flet edhe për situatën e nder me ruset në Rrëfim që për javë të tëra nuk e lanë të futen në qytet nga shqiptarët. Sa ishte gati të nisë një luftë e re, e mësoni në intervistën që gazetarja Bresha Shpati e realizoi me generalin holandez.
Lieutenant General Ton Van Loon, thank you very much for being with us and for your readiness to share with us your Kosovo military story. Now is the 20th anniversary of Kosovo liberation, thanks to the international military intervention, part of which you were too. How do you see things from today's perspectives?
Yeah, thank you very much. For us, 20 years ago is also a very vivid memory. I'm speaking to you today from the Dutch artillery school, where my soldiers, my men and women from 1909, are now also meeting to have their reunion, to also share their memories, because, well, you probably realize for us this was also a very challenging time, but also something that is very much on our memories. So we are also trying to share today our stories and thus making ourselves move forward as well.
We thank you very much for that. Actually, you entered in a very dangerous area in 1999. But what was a specific risk you have faced on these after days, war days, actually?
When I flew into Kosovo with my German general on the 12th, so immediately. My soldiers were in the convoys trying to come into to Kosovo from both sides, through Albania and from what we now call North Macedonia. But when we arrived in Prizren with the helicopter, basically there were 2 sides. On the one, enormous joy. The population, the Albanian Kosovars from Prizren, were celebrating because they were very, very happy. They now saw a better future for themselves. Of course, there were also those that were afraid. They were afraid of what was going to come. Immediately when I left Prizren, I drove to Rrëfime almost on the same day. And when I left, you could then see not the joy anymore, but what I would describe as horror. When I passed under the railway line that at the end of Prizren and came into the area of Velika Kruša, we saw what the war had done. We saw burned houses. We smelled the smell that we probably will never forget again. Dangerous, perhaps. There were still large portions of the Serb army there, quite a lot of tanks. So if they would have fought with us, this might have been dangerous, but they didn't. And to be quite honest, the commander of that military unit, I spoke to him that same evening, and he was very helpful because he showed me around and he stamped his foot on the ground everywhere and said in Serbian, he said, "Nema mina," so no mines, which for us was, of course, very, very helpful. So I wouldn't call it dangerous. It was much more, it was scary because it was such an horrific scene.
Is there any comparison you can make on a way how you were received actually by local Serbs and Albanians? You already told us that people were afraid because they didn't know what were coming. And how do you see that?
Well, when we came to Rrëfime, quite a lot of the Albanians were not there yet. They had fled. They were forced to leave. So quite a lot of their houses were burned. Their cattle was killed. So when they came back, they were looking for a way to move forward on their life. And on the other hand, the Serb minority was now dependent on us for protection. And which made it very difficult, because how do you do that in a country that is torn so much with the violence in the previous years? So my unit was also torn between, on the one hand, trying to assist the tribunal here in The Hague, uncovering mass graves, and on the other hand, protecting the Serb minority at the same time. And that with only a very limited amount of soldiers.
Mm-hmm. So how actually do you dealt with these two hostile local communities? What were the communication with them?
Okay, well, first of all, one of the things we did very from almost the beginning is we tried to establish contact. So we had people talking to the population as much as we could. We, of course, also had quite a lot of patrols. So there was no police left, so we were basically the police. So we had soldiers patrolling the entire area. We also made sure that people could tell us what had happened, what they thought would happen. So we more or less built some kind of a police station. We're not policemen, but we tried to make sure that we could actually capture what had happened so that people can actually come to us and talk to us. So you create a sense of normality. So not everything is violence anymore. I think that's one of the most important things we did from the beginning. But of course, we found ourselves also responsible for all those other things that soldiers normally don't do. We found the hospital in Rrëfime, which was now basically, well, it wasn't empty, it was there, but it wasn't functioning. So we put one of my doctors and we tried to get the hospital running again. We found the fire trucks from the fire brigade, but they were no longer operational, and they were basically standing there, and there were quite a lot of fires. So we tried to re-establish the fire brigade. But the most important was police work.
Actually, was there any situation when you saved people's lives as Serbs and Albanians, actually they were endangering each other's?
Oh, I think there were lots of situations where my soldiers stood between the sometimes very aggressive groups, separating them. Basically, one of the things you can do when you're a military unit, you can separate. You can actually stand in the middle and make sure that they don't fight each other. We even, at some point in time, we had attacks on the Serbian minority, which we then tried to stop most of the time they happen at night. My unit was an artillery unit, so we brought our guns, and one of the things artillery can do is it can fire illumination. It can light up the night. So we did that too, to make sure that these very often young, angry men could not hide in the dark and attack civilians. So we could actually show them that we could see them, and then basically scare them away. Did we stop all the violence? No. We also had to choose. We had to pick and choose what to protect, and we were not always aware of what was happening as well.
There also were some protests during the time when you entered in Kosovo, from local Albanians against Russian soldiers in Rrëfime, if you remember that period of the time. What was your reaction in that time, actually?
Well, one, I do remember. Two, it was not in the beginning. So when we came into Kosovo, there was no demonstrations against us whatsoever, as in none. This happened later, when someone decided that the next unit that would take over the Rrëfime area would be a Russian unit, and particularly the Albanians did not really like that idea. They were very much against it, which to some extent I can understand. It was also a bit done not very wisely. So we actually did have demonstrations to try and keep the Russians out and us in, which didn't make it easier for us, because we basically got stuck in some areas. It also did not really help in achieving progress in Rrëfime, but it was just an international political fact of life that we had to deal with.
Can you share with us one of your most difficult tasks during your mandate here in Kosovo?
I think the one thing that the most difficult, there were also things that were difficult, but that is mentally difficult, is dealing with mass graves and mass killings. Today, 20 years ago, I was for the first time in my life confronted with a mass killing site. A house with a lot of burned bodies in it, and later on the tribunal's team, in this case Scotland Yard, came and told me that all these men had been shot in the legs and then the house had been set on fire. That level of cruelty, that level of inhumane behavior is the one thing that for me is the most difficult to deal with. Violence in itself we can deal with. Difficult, yeah, that's why you take the soldiers, but this inhumane, this complete lack of humanity. We found mass graves where they put pigs on top of the dead bodies, which I find totally repulsive. That repulsiveness is probably for us soldiers the most difficult to deal with.
According to this, what are you saying? Can you recall any of your conversation that you had with your family or colleagues that can describe the horror scenes you have faced here in Kosovo?
Our communication at the time was difficult. We were then still in the military. My unit had a couple of satellite telephones, so we could actually call, but these were all single channel telephones, so not like we can talk to each other. You could only speak one at a time. And because we only had one of those and it had to go by satellite, very expensive as well, we did not get a lot of time to talk to our families. I'll give you my own personal example. I already talked to you about this mass grave. My wife's birthday was the next day. And when I spoke to my wife, the conversation we had was between two people living on a different planet. Understanding when you're not there what this means, trying to describe the smell that you will never forget, is humanly not possible. And I think quite a lot of my soldiers have the same problem. I have a couple of my soldiers that suffer from post-traumatic stress. Not so much because of the violence that they saw, not so much because of the danger that they were in, because the pictures that they saw are so much against humanity that it's very hard to deal with.
I see. What was, if we can call it as the most extraordinary task you have been asked to do, which you recall now as an inappropriate for a peacekeeper?
One, I belong to the school that doesn't think that works. Soldiers will do whatever it takes. That is exactly what defines a soldier. The Dutch army has a motto: soldiers will go on where others have to stop. There is no such thing as inappropriate. If someone else can do it, fine. But if someone can't, we will take care of it. In this case, for Kosovo, the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1244 specifically told us that we had to do all the civilian tasks to ensure a safe and secure environment until someone else could take over. So we saw it as our task to build a foundation for other organizations like the United Nations Police Force, but also NGOs and IOs, so that we actually built a foundation. And let me maybe point it a little bit differently. My soldiers we didn't live in much comfort. We didn't have any showers. We had to rough it. But because we saw how much the population that we were there to help suffered, I think my soldiers they really wanted to help, to make a real difference. So, and we could. And it helps an enormous amount if you know that what you're doing actually makes a difference. When I spoke at the Kosovo embassy this last Wednesday, that's the same feeling you get when I talk to the ambassador, talk to other Kosovars. The fact that we were able to build some kind of foundation so that now Kosovo can move on is such a gratifying task that a lot of hardships can then easily be overlooked.
Is there anything you would have changed in your mission? If there was actually a possibility now, when we talk 20 years after the war?
Well, yeah, on the political level, on the higher level, there might be all kinds of things that we could have done differently. On the local level, we could have been better prepared. We did not really know what we needed to do to maintain civil security. We could have used policemen in our task force from the beginning. We could have used experts in, for instance, fire brigade or medical work. It would have been easier, but it's really hard to predict what exactly you need to do. I think we've learned a lot from this mission. I've learned a lot from this mission. When I deployed to Afghanistan in 2006, my experiences from Kosovo, how to work with other organizations, how to deal with other organizations, is again very valuable. So, done something different? I don't know. Maybe in some areas the mandate was also a bit over-optimistic. So, not as in want to change it, but the future will tell how much we've learned from it when something else like this happens again.
As you mentioned Afghanistan, is there anything that you compare your mission there and here in Kosovo?
I got shot at in Afghanistan quite a lot of times, which I didn't get in Kosovo. So from the perspective of personal safety, Afghanistan was much more dangerous. I lost 70 soldiers in Afghanistan. I didn't lose any in Kosovo. But from the level of psychological stress, dealing with all these dead bodies, I think Kosovo was potentially even more difficult than Afghanistan was.
When you arrived here in Kosovo, had you had as a burden in your mission the blame that was upon your compatriots about the Srebrenica massacre?
Burden? Okay, well, let me do it this way. When Srebrenica happened, I was in the British Staff College. So I've learned the hard way how the international media can react. When I went to Kosovo, for me it was very important, we are going to do our job, one way or the other. We are going to try and make sure that whatever mandate has been given to us, we're going to make sure that we deliver on that mandate. Would anything have changed? I'm not sure. For the Netherlands, at the political level, of course, this was quite sensitive. This was the first time we actually really deployed into something as complicated as Srebrenica again. So it was politically sensitive. But I think it didn't have an immediate impact in the way we behaved. Of course, when this demonstration against the Russians happened, and the Kosovars were then putting paintings on the road, "Don't leave us again, remember Srebrenica," that of course did have an impact, but we were not planning to leave them anyhow.
Now, as a retirement military man, actually, do you follow events here in Kosovo that happened? Is there anything interesting for you as an independent country now?
Well, I think the way Kosovo develops at the moment, it has up and downsides. Like, by the way, quite a lot of countries in the world, it's not necessarily going as easily, as smoothly anywhere else. But what I find important is that the lessons from what happened in the last years of the previous millennium in Kosovo is something that people need to remember. Not going back to it all the time, but remember it shouldn't happen again. One question that was asked to me when I was still in Kosovo by one of the director of the wine factory in Rrëfime, actually, he asked me, how can you ever expect us to live next to our Serbian neighbors again? And when he asked that question to me, I was there with my German captain. And I said to him, listen, you should never forget what happened. Remembering what happened is vitally important to move on, but you must move on, like we did. The Netherlands, when 75 years ago we were liberated from the German occupation, and of course that created an animosity between us and the Germans. But now we can work with them like one single entity. We are completely teamed up. But we still don't forget. We still remember what happened, because remembering what happened and making sure it doesn't happen again is, in my opinion, one of the most crucial elements that we need to take away from this. And if I look at the world today, I see populists, I see people that are very much resembling Milosevic, blaming it all on someone else, on other ethnic groups, and I find that very scary.
According to this, do you believe that Kosovars and Serbians can make a peace agreement together and live in peace?
First of all, I have to believe that, because you have to have some kind of optimism, but there are indications. At the moment, the government in Pristina has both ministers from the Albanian and Serbian minority. So there are steps in the right direction. Do I believe it's going to happen overnight so that this thing is... No, it takes time. But it is important that we look forward instead of always looking back to history and saying, yeah, but then those days, or that year, or that period. No. You can use your history, but you build on your history and then move forward.
20 years after the war, still Belgrade, actually, they consider Kosovo as part of them. They control the north part, actually, north of Kosovo, Mitrovica. Do you see the possibility that they can accept Kosovo as a state?
Well, it's a good question. I'm not a politician, and I'm certainly not a Serbian or a Kosovo politician, so I don't know. One thing I would like to argue here is that it's vitally important that the people in Kosovo, the people in Serbia, realize that they have to move together to a future. Whether Kosovo is an independent country is ideal, I honestly can't tell you. I've seen very small countries being very successful. My country isn't very big either. But I've also seen very small countries not being very successful. I believe the road where the EU plays a big role in this and tries to bring the two parties to work together is for me, for now, the best solution. And if that means that Serbia at the moment doesn't want to recognize Kosovo as an independent state, as long as it works, you do remember that my mandate when I came to Kosovo in 1999 was not to make Kosovo, to liberate Kosovo as an independent country. That was not what the Security Council of the United Nations told us to do.
Do you see that it might happen any other conflicts here in Kosovo between Serbians and Kosovars?
Well, I think you need to work on making sure that it doesn't. And by the way, don't get me wrong, but conflicts between groups in countries is not that strange, and it's not unique for Kosovo. What is unique for Kosovo is that it went completely out of control, and it showed us how bad can it really get. It shows people of the world how horrible you can actually get when you don't control this, and when you've got politicians that want to exploit this. But exploiting differences is not a very good way forward. We should try and focus on what unites us, and not what we are different from.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you, but according to this, what is happening here in Kosovo, are Kosovo's politicians doing the right thing?
Really good question. I've met some of your politicians when I was in Kosovo. I think no one is perfect. So your politicians, as long as they try to move forward in the right direction, can they do things better? Sure. Is there a problem? Sure. It's a very young state. It's a very young government. They have to learn. But it's up to the population and to the media, to you, to then also say, wait a second, what you're doing is wrong. What you're doing doesn't help. And I believe one step at a time, moving in the right direction. And if they really don't do very well, then, well, it's up to you. Vote for someone else.
Lieutenant General, thank you very much for this interview and for all of those that you share with us as a television here in Kosovo. If you have anything else to share with us, or if I actually didn't ask you, you are free to share again, if there is anything that I didn't ask you.
No, thank you very much. And I think for us, it's important to also make sure that we did the work my men and women put into the mission in Kosovo, that it actually makes a difference. We today have a presentation from one of my officers that comes to Rawat regularly to show what it looks like today. The ambassador last Wednesday also showed me pictures of your pop stars, your international soccer players. And I think that's the right way to look forward to what is good and focus on it. Oh, by the way, there's one thing we have to agree on. The Kosovo soccer team is not supposed to beat the Dutch soccer team.
Let's hope so for that. And thank you very much.
Thank you very well. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ky është rrëfimi I generalit holandez që u fut në Rahovec me 1999. Tashti, do ndjekim një tjetër intervistë rrallë të realizuar nga Gazmend Syla në Helsinki të Finlandës pak kohë më parë. Këtu, ka fundi I vitit 2017, është themeluar një qendër interesante. Dikush e ka quajtur edhe si CIA e NATO-s dhe BE-s. Misioni I saj parsor është e monitorojë se çfarë po bën Rusia dhe apo e kërcënon ky vend I madh Unionin Evropian dhe Aleancën Veriatlantike. Jo vetëm në aspektin ushtarak, por edhe në atë hibrid. Por çfarë janë kërcënirmet apo sulmet hibride, nga cilat NATO dhe BE-ja po kanë aq shumë frikë? Ato janë përpjekjet e parreshtura, herë të suksesshme e herë të pasuksesshme, në të formave të ndryshme, për të destabilizuar një vend, një shoqëri apo një organizat, e cilat mund të bëhen nga jashtë, por edhe nga faktorët e brendshëm të një shteti që sponsorizohen nga të huajt. Me shumë sqarime, për këto lloj kërcënime jep Kirsti Narinen, drejtoresh për marrëdhënie ndërkombëtare në Qendrën Evropiane të Ekselencës për luftimin e kërcënimeve hibride. Ajo, pos kërcënimeve nga Rusia, flet edhe për rreziqet që I kanosin NATO-s dhe BE-s nga partitë djathiste, grupet ekstremiste, radikalistët islam dhe kisha ortodokse. Gjithashtu, Narinen tregon se deri në çfarë niveli rrezikon sigurinë e Evropës gjendja e brisht në Ballkan. Intervistës më të I paraprit një histori që tregon se çfarë tha Federica Mogherini e BE-s me rastin e inaugurimit të qendrës në fjalë.
Yeah, good. I guess we are a bit late, so
Hapësirat që po I vizitojnë shefi I NATO-s Jens Stoltenberg dhe përgjegjësja e BE-s për siguri Federica Mogherini I takojnë një organizate të rëndësishme ndërqeveritare që ndërtuan bashkë mekanizmat që këta dy zyrtar të lartë udhëheqin. Qendra Evropiane e Ekselencës për luftimin e kërcënimeve hibride që do të përrurohet pas pak ka për mision t'i përgjigjë rreziqeve të kësaj natyre me të cilat përballen Aleanca Veriatlantike dhe Unioni Evropian. Hapja e saj u pasi domosdoshmëri nga BE dhe NATO duke ditur se këto dy organizata ndërkombëtare, por edhe krejt kontinenti vjetër po bën të lëndueshme si nga ndërhyrjet prej jashtëmi, por edhe nga brenda. Rusia, Kina, Irani, por edhe lëvizje grupacione të ndryshme ekstremiste terroriste kanë interes të lëndojnë në ndonjë mënyrë aleancën dhe bashkimin evropian. Nëse nuk mundën nga jashtë dhe në mënyrë klasike, ato tentojnë të sponsorizojnë dikën nga brenda që mund të jenë parti politike apo organizata ekstreme për të destabilizuar shtetin, shoqërinë ose organizatën.
And there is no doubt that addressing hybrid threats is an interest we all share.
Dhe nuk ka asnjë dyshim se adresimi i kërcënimeve hibride është një interes i yni i përbashkët. Këto kërcënime janë transnacionale sipas definicionit. Ato vinë përmes internetit, nuk ndalen dot në përkufij. Ne të gjithë kemi parë se si sulmet kibernetike shpërndahen lehtë nga një vend në tjetrin. Lajmet e rreme tubohen dhe përkthehen e transmetohen përtej kufinjve nacional. Dhe nëse ato njëherë publikohen, duhen përpjekje të 2 fishta ose 3 fishta për të riadresuar perceptimin gjithandej botës. Dhe aktivitetet terroriste dhe grupet terroriste i targetojnë të gjitha shoqëritë tona, nga veriu në jug dhe nga lindja në perëndim.
Sipas Mogherinit, nëse një nga shtetet ose organizata demokratike në Evropë ose kudo qoftë tjetër në botë është të lëndueshme, atëherë edhe të gjitha simotrat e tilla janë të lëndueshme.
We can only be strong if we are strong together. And anyone who preaches the go alone theory.
Ne mund të jemi të fortë nëse jemi të fortë së bashku. Secili që predikon teorinë për të ecur vetë sheh iluzione në kohët tona globale. Kur kush nuk mund të mbijetojë vetëm më, jo pse kjo nuk është diçka e mirë apo pse diçka nuk është politikisht korrekte, por thjesht për shkak se kjo nuk pi ujë më, me gjithë këto kërcënime me të cilat po ballafaqohemi tashti.
Në fakt, qendra është themeluar formalisht më 11 prill 2017 dhe adresa e selisë së saj është e përkufizuar vetëm si diku në lagjen Sorainin të Helsinkit. Ajo u bë sipas ligjeve finlandeze me një memorandum mirëkuptimi ndërmjet 8 vendeve të Evropës, Shteteve të Bashkuara dhe në bashkëpunim me pajtim të plot me BE-n dhe NATO-n. Mogherini ka thënë se beson shumë që kjo qendër do të jetë një partner thelbësor dhe pikë reference për të gjitha aktivitetet evropiane për të luftuar kërcënimet hibride.
Finland was one of the first countries to mobilize all its ministries with a whole of government approach.
Finlanda ishte njëra nga vendet e para që mobilizoi të gjitha ministritë e saj me një qasje të tërësishme qeveritare. Kjo sepse kërcënimeve hibride duhet qasur si për nga këndi ushtarak, ashtu edhe ai civil. Ato janë të lidhura me bizneset, e po ashtu edhe informacionin. Ato kanë të bëjnë me infrastrukturën digjitale dhe jo digjitale. Kjo qasje është e dukshme në strukturën e kësaj qendre, duke vënë në një vend 3 komunitete të interesit me 3 fokuse të ndryshme, për ndikimin, për lëndueshmërinë dhe rrimëkëmbjen, dhe për terrorizmin dhe radikalizmin. Dhe unë mendoj se ky paralajmërim i faktit që kërcënimi më nuk është vetëm ushtarak, por është hibrid, pra i kombinuar, ka bërë të ketë kësi bashkëpunimi të ngushtë mes BE-s dhe NATO-s, pasi që ne kemi asete të ndryshme dhe ato funksionojnë shumë më mirë nëse i bëjmë së bashku.
Our European activities to counter hybrid threats.
Në webfaqen e qendrës evropiane për ekselencë në luftimin e kërcënimeve hibride, thuhet se ajo ka për qëllim të ndihmojë vendeve anëtare të saj, që janë vetëm ato shtete të cilat i takojnë BE-s dhe NATO-s, të kuptojnë dhe të mbrohen nga kërcënimet hibride. Se çfarë janë këto rreziqe dhe prej nga të cilat vende të mëdha të lindjes vijnë ato, kush janë shtetet anëtare të hibrid COI, sa veta punojnë në këtë qendër dhe qysh në të vërtetë e bëjnë ata punën e tyre, e kuptojmë nga intervista me drejtoreshën e saj për marrëdhënie ndërkombëtare, Kristina, që është realizuar gjatë një vizite të një ekipi të Klan Kosovës në këtë qendër në Helsinki. Kjo zyrtare, që ka qenë ambasadore në disa shtete të Evropës, përfshirë Ballkanin dhe Baltikun, flet mes tjerash edhe për rreziqe që vijnë nga Rusia, ekstremistët islamik dhe kisha ortodokse, e po ashtu edhe për atë se sa i lëndueshëm është rajoni i Ballkanit nga kërcënimet hibride.
Çfarë është qendra juaj, për çfarë shërben dhe cili është misioni i saj?
Our center is about building resilience, about discussing hybrid threats and countering them, as it is in the name of the hybrid center, is Center of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats. And hybrid means combined, coordinated, synchronized action of many elements, because hybrid means combined, just like hybrid cars are combined fuel users. That means that we need to identify the actions and we need to identify the vulnerabilities of our own societies so that we would be able to detect and find out which operations in the society are causing a serious threat to the society and to the democratic institutions of it.
Si do t'ja shpjegonit rrezikun hibrid dikujt që nuk e ka idenë se çfarë është ky lloj kërcënimi?
Hybrid threat means that it's an hostile attempt to influence your society, to influence the decision-making of your society, to destabilize and to cause confusion, to build or amplify dividing lines of your society, and thus also putting or having an impact on the normal democratic processes, such like elections and then the decision-making of those bodies or democratic institutions elected by the elections.
Kush dëshiron të kërcënoj në mënyrë hibride?
Well, until recently, it has been quite clear definition has been that it needs to be an external power. But I think that if we are moving towards the direction that actually it can be also internal, maybe is amplified or maybe is financed from outside, but it can also be a movement, a political movement within your country. It can be a political movement in Europe, in a kind of a pan-European movement. For instance, the right-wing extremism is something that is definitely not only coming from outside, but it can be supported from outside. And of course we have cybercrime that can actually be instigated from wherever, and that's why it's also very difficult to detect and sometimes definitely difficult to attribute and find the guilty body, even in a case where it would be more or less known.
Pse kjo qendër është e vendosur në Finland? A për faktin se Rusia është afër në kufi?
No, it's based here because Finland was asked, we were requested to start the process of building the Center of Excellence based on the EU and NATO joint declaration and action plan in 2016. Finland was requested because we have the national comprehensive security concept, which is making us a kind of a trusted and credible actor in this field, and us also having this kind of a reputation also, but also a historic label of being a facilitator of many international processes that are leading to stability and peace.
A është Rusia kërcënuesja kryesore në këtë aspekt? Pra, në rrezikun hibrid.
Well, Russia is producing a lot of case material. We have to admit that, and we openly admit that. But not only Russia. There is an increasing number of non-state actors within the European family, and because all our member states need to be EU or NATO members, there's a lot of internal pressures within the countries. China is also causing concern in Europe and increasing concern. In the Western Balkans region, of course, there's also the radicalizing Islam and Islamic countries that are causing concerns, and many others. So it's not only Russia, but Russia is probably the one which is most visible, particularly in the bordering regions at the moment.
E përmendet Ballkanin Perëndimor. Çfarë paraqet për qendrën tuaj Ballkani Perëndimor në kuptimin e kërcënimeve hibride?
Well, I would rather see that it's of increasing importance. At the moment, we don't have any member states yet from the Western Balkans region. We however have an expert pool on Western Balkans to which we have invited experts from our member states and EU and NATO institutions as well. But I see, and we see at the center, that we would like to focus on Western Balkans more than we're doing at the moment, because, and also through getting or via getting new member states from those countries or of those countries that are EU and NATO members in the region. Because Western Balkans has a lot of elements that I think are threatening, of course, the stability in the region, but also stability in the European continent as a whole, bearing in mind that Western Balkans region is already surrounded by EU and NATO members, so it's already kind of inside.
Pos radikalizmit dhe ekstremizmit, çfarë tjetër e kërcënon Ballkanin?
Well, in the Balkans, I think that we all our listeners are well aware that what could be and what are the risks that are, anyways, threatening the internal stability of the region and of the individual states. And it's also you need to remind or kind of keep in mind that in the Western Balkans it's not a region as such. It's a geographic entity, but the problems and the challenges are very different in different countries in the region, and that makes it also difficult or challenging to handle, because there would be foreign direct investments, there's money, there's also organized crime, there's migration, immigration in the region, there's also religion, Islam, but also Orthodox Church has an important role to play. Some countries, and particular that the regional coherence is poor, so that there's also already built-in political destabilizing factors in the region. And of course, I mean, it's not that long ago when there was still war going on, so that kind of the aftermath of that is still there. Of course, we're extremely pleased that this name issue on Northern Macedonia was solved or is solved, and that of course is kind of opening at least one big lock of stability.
Në këtë aspekt, si e sheh qendra juaj dialogun Kosovë-Serbi?
Well, the Hybrid Center of Excellence is not an entity that should comment on political processes. We are a capacity building, dialogue building institution or body, and it's always good from our angle where dialogue is used, because dialogue and communication is the basis for any kind of solutions. But I would rather leave commenting political issues to those who have them on their agenda.
Ju keni 20 veta që janë të angazhuar në këtë qendër. Kush janë njerëzit tjerë që punojnë për juve?
Well, in the center we have 20 people. Out of those are 8 secondees from our member states, and the rest are employed by the center itself. We have secondees from United Kingdom, Germany, Lithuania, Estonia, United States, Austria and Germany at the moment, and Finland. And we will get more secondees in this, even the course of this year. Basically, the Center of Excellence as such is only a coordinating body. Main knowledge and excellence is in our expert and practitioners networks in our member states and in the EU and NATO institutions. And that's what makes us very agile, makes us very comprehensive. Also, we actually have several hundreds, if not 1,000 experts already kind of working for us, so to say, in our expert pools and in our communities of interest. And when the need appears, we can build another community of interest easily to discuss a certain theme. And this network-based kind of modus operandi is quite unique. So we will never be big in the Secretariat. So the center will never be big, but it will be very, very wide and has a very wide base of communication and expertise in our member states and in NATO institutions.
Ju faleminderit shumë për pritjen dhe intervistën.